Thanks, Craig.
Recording.
Hey, thank you, Greg.
Metal Gear.
So,
All right.
Dissonant Waves, episode 4.
Hello, everybody. This is Dissonant Waves, episode 4.
Hello,
Good
everybody. This is
I'm driving again.
This is Anthony Fantano.
X is driving. Ritalin is Ritalin squared, and I'm Dominic. It's a beautiful. Gotta read that. It's 5:52 a.m.
It is
Lost at
6:52
8:52 p.m.
6:52 a.m. where I'm at.
Amazing how time zones work, isn't it?
Isn't it amazing?
Things we do for the podcast. Always for the podcast. And today we got, usually it's 3 albums, but we got 2 albums, an EP, and a collection of singles because that's just how we're doing it this week. We got, on the album
Dominic's
side, we got...
cheated.
I did cheat.
Yes.
He cheated. He cheated.
So we talked about this as, a potential possibility before we even started. And I was like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it. But let's see.
You abused the system by doing something we allowed.
I'm going to do it more often. Just you wait.
Is that a threat?
Not everyone can pick Gotye's like drawing blood. Not everyone can pick adult mom's momentary lapse of happily. But some people might pick Troye Sivan's Trixie EP. And some people might, just might, also pick Aiden Alexander's collection of singles that he has out right now.
Fuck you. Fucking go light night yet.
There's nothing better than just driving completely dangerously whilst doing a podcast.
Well, I mean, I'm not driving dangerously. I'm using like hands-free. So
we can wait for you to pull over and do your thing. You get to that Walmart parking lot.
I'm almost there. This makes good podcasting. Just me swearing at fucking red lights.
Just hum some music in the car. Just get us copyright struck. Yeah, let it be how it be.
If I did that, because I'm using my phone for Discord, you guys would just start coming through my stereo. And
it'll just ruin all the audio, I'm sure. Like it has been for the last few episodes already. This entire sentence, probably, you're only going to hear half of it. So, thanks.
Oh, I heard all of that, so don't worry.
You hear all of it in the recording, but when it actually plays back, you'll hear half of it. My words.
Big old
anyway.
F.
Welcome to the Dissonant Waves podcast. We have no idea what we're doing today, but we're going to do it somehow.
That's how we roll every week. This is very DIY. This is very no budget. This is just 3 people talking. Who wants to talk first?
You know what? I reckon let's go straight into the Troye Sivan. Something as we're kind of talking a little bit about that before we started this recording, so it's a bit more fresh on our minds.
Troye Sivan. Let's see. Are you ready to go, Trix, or should we wait?
I am parked right now.
Oh, awesome. Walmart says hello.
Yes,
okay.
We're in my second studio.
Troye Sivan. He's South African by way of Australia. I believe that's how you say that. He is known for being an actor, a YouTube star, a social media personality. He's one of the... How do you put this? He's not known for being...
He is one of the biggest acts to come from Australia at the moment.
Yes. It was a big deal when he came out of the closet in 2013, I believe.
Which I don't think was that much of a surprise.
That's when I first knew about him, so I guess it was a surprise to me. But, he's a very out and proud artist for this new generation of people. He's a millennial or something like that.
I'm just going to be ripping on Perth for the majority of this.
He grew up in Perth. He was an actor. He starred in X-Men Origins Wolverine, playing young Logan. So there's that to his name. His acting career hasn't been as big since. He's done some other stuff, but he's mostly been a YouTube star, but a singer. Living his best life, I'm sure. So we picked this Trixie EP. It was technically not his first EP, but it was like his first EP on a major label. Like when people really found out about him, if he didn't follow his YouTube career. And I picked it because I wanted to compare relatively this part of his music career to that of Aiden Alexander, who is a similar spot right now. He's an actor. He's like a social media personality. He's really good on Twitter right now, but he's been on YouTube and Vine since he was a kid, which is weird to say. He has a collection of singles: I Don't Love You, Melancholia, Guts, and Yours. He promised an EP like a year ago and hasn't delivered yet, so we'll see what happens.
He's a dirty liar.
You know that singing management thing that goes on when you're a singer? And they can do some weird stuff, I guess. Like make you hold back your EP, even though you've released enough songs to make an EP.
Yeah.
But I digress. I wanted to compare these two just for how music can change over the last few years, how one act can inspire another, because I hear a lot of Troye Sivan and Aiden Alexander's music. Just how pop stars grow today, because they are kind of all-encompassing celebrities almost. They're not as big, perhaps it's like Hollywood celebrities, but they're pretty big for what they do.
So one thing I'll actually say, just before we get into this, it's this whole, like, he's released 4 songs and stuff, hasn't put out the EP. I know Aiden Alexander is American. There is an incredibly popular Australian act. I don't know if you've heard of them, because I don't know if their success outside of Australia, called Peking Duck.
Not heard of them.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, they are incredibly popular in Australia. They back in 2014, their breakout single "High" got number 2 in the hottest 100, and then they had a number 5 the same year as well. Then the next year they had one at 31. Then the year after that, one at 9, and then one at like 31 and 10, and blah blah blah. Point is, they've released like 10 singles. All of those have been hits. They've still yet to actually properly release an EP or album since High broke out in 2014.
That's kind of a thing I've noticed. At least that's what I've read in articles and that kind of stuff about artists transitioning away from actually making albums or EPs and just kind of focusing on promoting their singles, because that's where they can get most of their hits, especially on like Spotify. Yeah. And so I think maybe this is the first big wave of that happening, where we're seeing acts like Aiden or Peking Duck just releasing singles, because what does it matter? They're getting the hits they need anyway.
Well, there's a lot of articles that you will see on stuff like the Pitchforks and stuff like that. They go like, "Oh, albums are dead and everything because of streaming." And there goes to a point in which they are correct, in which albums are dead, in which they aren't going to be the primary form for selling music.
Yeah.
Now, there's always going to be artists who just put out albums and everything, but I wouldn't be surprised if you never see a true album from Aiden Alexander. You might get a Drake Scorpion, in which it's just a compilation of everything. Whether or not there's any quality or anything, it's all just about putting out the music.
And there's, go on, Drake.
I feel like the album kind of died mostly when iTunes came around and you could buy any song for $1.
Perhaps. I mean, albums have still been big, but
yeah, but I feel like they've really been on the decline since then.
Decline,
so
sure.
It's become less about, oh, I need to hear the new album, and so, oh, there's this one song I like off the album.
I mean, you could say that DVDs and Blu-rays have been on the decline since streaming, but there's still a big audience for those things. They're more segmented now. There's more of a defined space for both of them.
You're looking to the only man who still regularly buys CDs.
To work at a used CD store, so I bought a lot of CDs and DVDs in my time.
I'm trying to do the math here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Don't stop me. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. All right, now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Do 16 times 35, and that's the estimate of how many CDs are just right next to me.
Oh goddamn. Let me pull up my calculator.
Yeah, it's okay.
Don't need to worry. That's 35 times 16, 300, blah blah blah. That should be around
Shit ton.
330.
Double that.
630?
560.
560. I did that badly. I've done that really bad. You're sure not that bad at math.
You know, there's an
Yeah,
appeal.
that's the estimated amount of CDs that are right next to me. Some of those are double CDs.
There's an appeal to when you work at a store like that and you can get your CDs for like $2.50, and it's like, you know what? I'll check out Fuel. I'll see what Fuel's all about because I don't know Fuel.
No, I get a lot of these from thrift shops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So whilst the album might be dying, my thrift shop hunting is.
Oh
An
yeah, I love
Avamar
thrift
shirt
shops.
is great.
Yeah.
I bought an auto harp at a thrift store one time.
It's an auto harp.
It's like a harp, except you like strum it and you press buttons and it like holds chords for you.
It's cool. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah, I need to pay like $50 to set a string.
On this note, shall we actually get into discussing the choice of Arno? Otherwise, we'll go into my expert CDs collection. I'm going to hold that out for the end of the episode.
This is Troy's big, bursting open EP. This is when he became really well known, more than just for his YouTube. So what do you think of this first big batch of songs? What stands out to you?
The defo big. I know it's probably the easy choice to say in this, but the big standout was Happy Little Pill. I think not only am I going to just say here like that's the best off this, blah blah blah, but you know how I was talking about before this, before we started about that's a traditional kind of perf pop sound. Happy Little Pill is that exact sound that I can remember just seeing a lot of these kind of electronic pop artists that I see live at concerts just perform. It's to say generic would probably be a bit harsh because again, it might not be that common anywhere else. I mean, it's not exclusive to perf, but that is the exact overall vibe and sound, and that's why that really stood out to me. Again, I'm going to be ripping on perf quite a lot, and I'm not the only Australian to ever do that when it comes to music. If you actually look into a lot of popular Australian songs, there is a lot of it that actually rips on the perf music scene. You two would obviously know Tame Impala.
I've heard Tame Impala.
Yeah, I've heard a few of them.
The song Elephant is actually just a 3-minute diss on perf. And for a while, that was his most popular song.
Like, what is Perth?
It's because
Perth is like a suburb, right?
Perth is the capital of Western Australia. So it's not really talked about too much because the major cities, when people think of Australia, is usually Sydney, Melbourne. And no one ever talks about Canberra, but that's actually our country's capital.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's kind of like what do you think the capital of New Zealand is?
No.
Exactly. The only place you probably would have heard of is Auckland. That's not even the capital of New Zealand. It's Wellington.
Wellington. I don't know why, but
it's like that with New York. It's like, what do you think the capital of New York is?
So, I don't even fucking know. I don't study this. I fucking want to know.
Most people would say New York City. No, it's not Utica. Most people
not
would say
Utica. It's an Albany expression.
Yes, it's actually Albany. Most people would end up saying something like New York City because they're not familiar with it.
But all the way over on the left side of Australia, Western Australia, which is actually like biggest state size-wise, there's a little capital city called Perth, and there is a huge indie music scene over there. Now, it's not the only place in Australia that has that. There's other ones where we're starting to get a bit more. If you've heard if you've heard Tones and I, who's becoming a bit more popular overseas as well, then you would have heard a lot of the stuff coming out of the Byron Bay indie scene. Brisbane has quite a lot. I think the chats are getting a bit more popular and stuff like that. Melbourne is also a big one. But Perth is the one that we're kind of talking about. That's where Troy Sivan is from. And it's not actually a problem that comes with its sound or anything like that. It's apparently the scene over there is really egotistical and pretty against each other, and that's why there is a lot of artists who end up like I'm not a part of the scene, so a lot of this could just be fake, and this is just what you hear from a lot of other artists who talk about it. Again, like those Kevin Parkers and stuff like that. And that's probably also another reason why Troye Sivan doesn't actually live in Australia at the moment.
He lives in like LA right now.
Yeah, I think it's in LA, yeah.
You know, interestingly, we can talk about Melbourne in a minute when we get to Gotye, because he is Belgian, but moved to Australia like Troye Sivan did.
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, I was gonna say, we can talk about Melbourne in a minute.
Yeah, say that one more time.
Melbourne?
Yeah, it's Melbourne.
Melbourne. My apologies. I don't mean to offend the Australians.
You've fallen into the classic. That is, I didn't think it was true. This is a cliche that we have about Americans, is that they can only ever say it as Melbourne. You watch Jason Bourne once and you think it's pronounced that.
So it's Melbourne?
It's Melbourne.
Melbourne. Okay.
All right. I will not forget that now. Thank you.
You will. You will.
I'll probably forget it when we get to Gotye. So
yeah. Anyway, back to Troy.
This is a sad pop episode. We talked about that a little bit, but this is all kind of just sad, melancholy pop. Troye Sivan, maybe the most cleanest of it, in the sense that it's very, poppy, acceptable sound.
Yeah.
His on this EP, his range is not great. Like Happy Little Pill is like a very poppy pop track. It's about, I believe it's about kind of being lost in a new town like LA and kind of just seeing the people around you treating themselves medically and whatnot, just kind of reveling in that, not reveling, but perhaps just kind of being seeped in that because that's where you live now, and it's still alien. That's, I think, where then like his genius or something about the song. But then, Touch and Fun and Gasoline are all kind of different levels of the same kind of pop. Gasoline's a little bit softer, Fun is a little bit more like Happy Little Pill, but there's not a whole big range. And with 5 songs, you can't really get that much range. So,
I mean,
I would disagree.
I would disagree. And I'll probably talk about that more in next week with next week's record. But you can do quite a lot in a short period of time, and many bands have shown that. I mean, Kids See Ghosts last year was 7 songs, 23 minutes, and that did quite a lot.
I mean, I don't mean to say it pejoratively. Like, you can have that same sound. I mean, like Adult Mom has the same sound for most of their songs, but there's also good stuff in there too.
There is. I mean, it is always hard when it comes to length and everything like that to more perfectly get that kind of nice blend of not straying too far, but not going way too fucking central when it comes to a sound. And yeah, the Troye Sivan is way more on the central type of sounds. I do think he does try a actual little bit with it, but ultimately, a lot of the songs do blend in with each other. Yeah, it is an EP. Yeah, you probably aren't expecting to have this whole odyssey of an album or anything like that. But I like to treat EPs a little bit differently from an album. I like to try test. My words are dumb here. I like to see EPs as more of a kind of like test and a real potential of what we can do with a sound.
Yeah.
And that's why I
Yeah.
prefer to see a lot more blending around. And I completely throw away flow when it comes to EPs, because I think you got a short period of time, just
Right.
try as much as you can.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of a statement on like what you're doing at that point, which I appreciate. But that's
I
also
definitely feel like EPs should go for like the blunderbuss attack as well,
it
where
also
they just try and throw as much shit at the wall and see.
a possibility for you to throw on songs that you're not going to release anywhere else, just so you can have it out there. Like I think "The Fault in Our Stars" is kind of an example of that, where it's very different because it was recorded with a different purpose in mind, but it was popular kind of, so put it on there.
Yeah, and I think that's also another thing that we. So talking about going back into that whole like the format of albums and everything like that, you notice it's kind of before iTunes as well, is where people would have that kind of popular hit without any intention to do an album, and then just be like, "Oh, I guess we're doing an album now."
Yeah.
The Fault in Our Stars is the only one that Troy wrote by himself. I mean, he wrote on all of these, but he had other songwriters for the ones that I think there's a difference that does show. But he was able to get his first hit on his own, and that's impressive for sure. Even if it does sound different.
I mean, yeah, that's always definitely impressive. It is. I think it also helps if the rise of streaming as well. There is a lot of acts who only put out like these one songs or anything like that, and they are quite just by themselves who do generate these hits, even if they're not so international. I think I don't know if you've heard of Benny. She had a hit with "Soaked" in Australia and New Zealand, where she's from, and that was literally her debut single.
I'm not heard.
Whilst on the other side of the spectrum, you have artists like Clairo. Now, I'm not going to go do any ripping on Clairo. We can say that for another album, in which she has that kind of whole like, here's a song. It seems like it's just by herself, but obviously she's had quite a bunch of connections coming into this, and it is a lot more than just her. And it's not a debut. He gets a hit with. I think "Pretty Girl" was like a third or fourth track or something like that. So there always is the joy and the quite a bit of an accomplishment of getting that hit of a song that you've written all by yourself. That's something I could never do. I don't have a songwriting ability. I can think of lyrics up in my head, but they're all fucking shit.
There's a million artists who have put out songs that no one listens to and no one's found, but they could be just as good as they could not be. It's kind of almost.
But I do feel like we actually are seeing a larger influx of that.
Yeah, because it's easier than ever to put out your songs. You just put it on SoundCloud, put it on, whatever.
Subscribe to my SoundCloud. I am Paul.
Trix, what did you like about this EP?
Goodbye, Trix.
I'm still here.
I was about to get the laugh track out.
What were your thoughts?
If I'm going to be honest, I didn't really like this EP all too much.
Okay. What did you not like about it?
It kind of felt just kind of generic pop. Kind of like it didn't really do like if I'm listening to pop music, I like it to step outside of the reaches of pop music a little bit. This felt like so firmly like safe and central, if you ask me.
I do think there's some notability about like songs like "Gasoline" clearly being about like kind of gay issues or issues that are maybe universal but seen through a gay lens. Because I think that's something that's interesting about this EP, just kind of about his songwriting ability. He's able to bring issues within that community to a larger fore that can be more relatable. Not everyone can do, or a lot of artists are expected to kind of keep their sexuality, their identity, kind of, what's the word, on the down low. Yeah.
And adult mom, Stephanie Knipe, she's also very forward about her sexuality and all that stuff. And I feel like she does a better job of getting through with the songwriting about it. Yeah, she's a
Their
little bit
gender
more in your
identity as
face
well, I
about it,
believe,
but I
yeah.
feel like it works.
So I'm gonna make the the bold claim here that out of all the songs and stuff that we listened to from the selection,
Mm.
that the most enjoyable one was an Aiden Alexander song.
Really?
Yeah, I think "I Don't Love You" was probably my favorite out of the whole 9.
Okay.
I don't think I'm gonna even really be praising "I Don't Love You" that much. I think it was just the one I think okay. There's a bit more like it's a bit more enjoyability with this. Really, that's really it though. I don't think there's inherently anything here that would make me ever just turn it off and go, oh, skip.
I found myself really liking Guts because it reminded me a little bit of like a Death Gripsy sound.
I just need to remind myself quickly on Guts. I don't remind. Yeah.
Chorus kind of drops and it's like very
Yeah.
ambient.
I remember Guts. That kind of real dark kind of sound.
Kind
Yeah.
of like the bowels of a gay nightclub, and there's just this dude like
Man,
kind of
actually,
approaching
I was thinking of the act in Australia at the moment who's that really big forward on their sexuality, and you wouldn't have heard them. It's an act called Cub Sport, and their first album was this kind of like real soft, kind of like folky stuff, and after this, it was this kind of it was this album that's really about just kind of breaking into the music scene, and after that got released, the singer and I think it's the guitarist or something, it came out and said that they were in a relationship with each other. And then they released their second album a year later, which is this it's just pretty much this whole journey about coming out and their experience like coming to terms with their sexuality. And then their third album is the Bloody Scissor Sisters album.
Huh?
You can't get that's the true evolution of gay right there. I don't think you can get any more.
Appreciate it. I like it. Yeah, I think I think you can hear Aiden's sound in Choi's sound, but Aiden I think has gone a little bit more into the direction of like being not I feel like saying edgy is so it doesn't mean the same thing anymore. But he's going for like an edgier kind of, fuck censors, just say what you need to say. And I'm gonna say that I think Aiden is actually the stronger songwriter. I don't know if he's the stronger singer, but his lyrics, because he's less filtered and less censored, I think speak more to me. In that pop sound at least.
Mm.
His chorus or Gus
I
is like
definitely preferred the Aiden song, Troye Sivan's.
I can barely hear you. What's that?
I definitely preferred the Aiden Alexander song, Troye Sivan songs.
Okay.
I felt like he had definitely a better sound with more interest to it.
Yeah. Like this is, as far as I know, this is something he's kind of doing on his own, like writing it and kind of, he has like a team promoting him, obviously, but it seems to be driven by him a lot. So I can appreciate someone really trying to find their sound and really drive for it, even if it's, not what radio friendly used to be. It's like, fuck it. It's streaming, just put it on Spotify, get it a lot of hits. You don't need to worry about that stuff anymore.
So on that, favorites, least favorites. Trix, you go first.
Favorite songs. I nothing really stood out to me on the Troye Sivan album, but of the Aiden Alexander songs we listened to, I really enjoyed Yours.
We'll say real quickly, there was something about Aiden's voice, especially in Yours, that is something I've not really heard in other singers before. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if any of you noticed this as well. But like in certain lines, it sounds very like emotive. Like the way he sings is very like You're a smile or something. Or like kind of slurred, but not exactly, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like there's a flow to it that I've never really heard anywhere else.
What would you say your least favorite was, Tricks?
Happy Little Pill off of the Troye Sivan Trixie. It just didn't jive well with me.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I reckon my favorite has to be, it's probably I Don't Love You is probably the favorite. I agree, Guts is actually pretty good, but I'm going to give it an I Don't Love You. Again, I don't hate Happy Little Pill. I don't think it's a standout in a great way. I think it's just really a standout because, the knowledge I have of the scene in Australia, even though it's not the most extensive, it is something that stands out because of it. But I'll probably say the worst track is probably The Fault in Our Stars.
Agree. Why do you think so?
Just nothing. Just nothing to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's inspirational pop, which is a very hard genre to do. And if that's your first song, which I believe this was his first song, that is a hard goal to achieve, is to get something like, I don't know, Josh Groban-y like that and make it something that's listenable.
So just before we go into your favorites and least favorites of this, when it comes to like inspirational pop, it's something that always sticks out to me. It's I think when it comes to getting an inspirational vibe from pop or sounds like that, it doesn't always have to come lyrically. Like probably one of my favorite songs in the past decade is Flight Facilities doing pretty much their reimagining of the classic Claire de Lune. And I think it's Christine Hellberg is her name, comes in with all these vocals and lyrics about giving up hope on a relationship and everything, just like the fear of everything dying. And it sounds like this song that really is, there's nothing inspirational to it because she never really has this kind of message of everything is better now, it's getting better, stuff like that. But the sounds in it, in everything, despite all this fucking shit going on, has always inspired this kind of like hope in me. And I think inspirational pop, it doesn't always have to be about the lyrics or anything in there. There is such a lot that can just be done with the tune that can inspire so much, just that feeling into you. And Fault in Our Stars definitely does not do that.
A lot of, I think, inspirational pop is about sound, like creating something that's very happy or warm. Makes you feel good, or at least has some kind of effect like that. And going for it intentionally is like going for comedy intentionally. Or if you try to be funny, you're not going to be as funny as if it occurs naturally.
Yeah, and I think that's also what makes the reimagining of Claire de Lune so fucking good.
And so, for my most and least favorites, I'm going to say this. I got into Troye because he did Gasoline. And Gasoline is a co-writing thing with a British musician called Paul Carter, also known as Ben Brick. And I found Ben Brick because he worked with Hikaru Utada, who's a Japanese pop star who's written like the Kingdom Hearts theme song everybody knows. And she's also worked on the recent Evangelion movies, bringing anime into this. And he worked with her on the song for Evangelion 3.33 called Sakura Negishi, which is a really beautiful song. And I looked him up one day because I was looking at that song, found that he worked with Troye Sivan, and I'm like, I'm gonna check out Gasoline, see how that goes. And surprisingly, that they sound pretty similar. They're both very gentle love songs, very quiet and a little bit atmospheric, a little bit melancholy. And that's how I found Troye. I like Gasoline a lot. I think Happy Little Pill's a good pop song. With that caveat that it's a good pop song. Fun and Touch, whatever. What was that?
I was going to say your least favorites, but you're getting into that.
Fun and Touch are fine. I think The Fault in Our Stars is just a clear bottom for me, at least for Troye. Because I don't want to rag on Troye because again, Fault in Our Stars was a hit for people, He went into like a local hospital to
if we
film
can
a music
rag
video or
on
something.
Devin Townsend, you can rag on Troy.
Is it? About Devin Townsend?
Yeah,
Fite?
if we can rag on Devin Townsend, you can rag on Troy.
Fair enough. It's hard because Fault in Our Stars is his first song, the first one to make it big, and there's something to that for people. But I mean, it just doesn't feel, at least especially with where it's placed in the EP, it feels like an afterthought. It feels like something that was just kind of placed there, and it doesn't mean anything. And maybe it means something to him, but they didn't do a good job of showing it, at least in removed from the time it was recorded and produced and was a hit for people. Maybe it meant something back then, but it doesn't mean anything now.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider that song came out in 2014 when the Fault in Our Stars movie came out, and they're not related at all. It makes you think maybe it was supposed to be a theme song for that movie, and it wasn't. But who knows? I mean, yeah. For Aiden, I really like Guts. I think Guts is a really interesting pop song. I like the Death Gripsy vibe. I like the Flying Lotus vibe, the Melancholia.
Hey, we have this dark experimental sound. What does it sound like? Oh, that's Death Grips. I don't really think it sounds that much like Death Grips. It's dark. It is a little bit industrial, but I don't really see the Death Grips in it.
I might be overblowing it by saying that, but I don't know. It was like, oh, okay. I was like, when the beat drops, and it's like, I was surprised. It was a genuine surprise of like, oh, okay, he's going there with that. All right. Which, is like kind of a world away from what yours is doing. And yours is fine, but yours is, that more generic pop song where he has some interesting lyrics going on. But, it's just a pop song. I think, he's shown that he's more expressive and experimental than that. And that's what I find that I'm really looking for from him now that I've heard his 4 songs. Like, he has a lot of potential, I think.
And on that note, let's move over to the Adult Mum record.
All right. I forget exactly how I discovered this album. I think I was just going through a a Google Play radio sort of thing. But when I first heard it, there's like the vibe really hit me in a good way. And then I went back and listened to the lyrics, and I'm like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck.
Yeah. If you are genderqueer like Stephanie is, or if you have, a lot of queer feelings, there's a lot of here that'll really get you.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's something that's really strong about their songwriting, is that their songs are very simple, but some of the album is very emotionally honest.
And there's some really good intros to songs where it's just like, oh, sorry I made you cry, that sort of thing, and it's like that makes the record to me feel a bit more.
So actually, on that note, there's one thing I wanted to talk about with that kind of whole intro, and it's about how Be Your Own 3 AM and Survival are both great tracks here. Be Your Own 3 AM does not at all. My only problem with it on the album is that it feels like an overstretched intro. Yeah. It doesn't feel like an opener. So to me, when I listen to this, the opener is Survival, and Be Your Own 3 AM is an intro to that. That's how it feels.
I feel like it would have been better if they shortened Be Your Own 3 AM to just an intro and then had the full song at the end of the album as kind of a reprise to wrap up everything.
Yeah, I feel like that would actually probably have fitted the album a lot more. But Survival is definitely, when you listen to the rest of this album, Survival is the strong opener to this. It fits the complete vibe. It has that whole kind of start of everybody getting it together, talking with it, a whole lot, and then just goes straight into the music. And I think that's that's a great opening to the album. Plus, I mean, the only 2 tracks that I did know before coming into this album was Survival and Be Your Own 3 AM. I heard a bit of Full Screen off another album, but it's obviously irrelevant to this. And even though I don't really relate a lot with this whole genderqueer stuff because, obviously, I consider myself male, and I don't really plan to change that. But despite all this, I can actually feel a lot of her emotion, and these are really fun tracks to listen to for me.
The surprise, because in the way this is produced, it's very much like a bedroom kind of record on your own kind of sound and it kind of varies from song to song. But there are ones like "Sorry I Was Sorry" and maybe I think it was "Lose Recover" that have a definite change in production sound, where it really sounds like they're kind of recording on their own in the bedroom or something. Whereas the others might have been more of a jammy kind of garagey thing. I'm not entirely sure.
Actually, the big one that has that a big kind of jammy, garagey sound is definitely "Told You So."
And
It has that
really
kind of
the
whole
song that
drum.
hooked me.
Yeah, it has this kind of like lo-fi sounding drums, like this whole bedroom DIY sound to it, and it does just sound like they're just jamming for the whole thing, and it's pretty fucking lovely.
I say something, Drix?
I just went,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, there's his laugh track. Yeah. You're right, Struck or something, I'm sure.
There's a lot of acts actually that I could think of whilst listening to Adult Mum that there's a couple that I've only listened to a bit, like a Free Cake for Every Creature and Frankie Cosmos. Those are just on the Spotify that I've like heard on there. But the big one that I actually thought of comparing this to is Sydney Gish, who is, I don't know where the fuck she's from. It's just a solo artist who makes this kind of real same DIY bedroom pop rock. I think she might be New York or something. What does it say? No, used to suck and say it. And it's a sound that I don't think is that difficult to properly execute. And I also feel like there's a lot more that can be done with it. And it's a sound that I'm actually pretty excited for to see more artists execute.
It's one of those sounds where anybody can do it, but it's hard to do it right.
Well, I mean, obviously, if we go back the way to those classic DIY albums, you can never go past Violent Femmes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from there, we've had a lot of these DIY kind of stuff just come out, and it's been some absolute fucking classics come out of it. I don't know if I would consider this album personally to be a classic, but I fully enjoy it start to finish.
We'll put this in the camp of like Hot Flash Heatwave and Diarrhea Planet, kind of a similar vibe in a way of those. Will they also
The
kind of
Hot Flash Heatwave, I still do have some problems with, even though I enjoy it. I'd probably put this up there with the Diarrhea Planet, though.
I was gonna say I like this one the most of those because I feel like this is more personal and more. I don't know what the word is. Like there's something to it. Like there was something about Adult Mom where I kept coming back and legitimately enjoying it more and more each time, more than Diarrhea Planet or Hot Flash Heatwave. Like I enjoyed those more as time went on, but this one was like every time it's like, okay, I'm like a layer deeper. Eventually I'll get to the core and really be in it.
I definitely feel like she has a way with emotions and words, shaping like a general sound with her voice.
Plus, that's what we were talking about before when it comes to like broadening the sound in a short period of time. This is 13 songs in 31 minutes. It's in no stretch of the imagination a long album. I think the longest song in here only just stretches past the 3-minute mark.
Yeah, I've got the track list.
2012 goes to 306. Yeah. So this is quite a short album, and there is supposed to be quite a lot happening into this, and I think it does that also good job of doing that blend of straying away, but not going so fucking far away that it's just like, oh, this feels like a compilation, but not saying so
Yeah.
sensual that it's not like same. Again, like, there is a huge contrast in between Be Your Own 3 a.m. and Survival. That's why I also do feel like Be Your Own 3 a.m. needs to be shorter, and that is again one of the problems that I do have with this album. It is because when you have those long intro to because it does not fit the rest of the album. Be Your Own 3 a.m. It's a good song, but it just does not fit the rest of this album. It's like King Gizzard's album this year, Fishing for Fishies. Their title track, the opener, great song. It does not fucking fit with the rest of the album though, despite it being a title track, despite it being the opener. And a lot of artists don't always understand how important a good opener is. And again, that's why I consider this more of an intro in Survival to be the opener, because Survival fits more as the opener.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with any of that. I think this is an easy enough sound, maybe, or just a broad enough sound where it's hard for me to see a song that legitimately does not fit. I think all these songs are kind of, like I said before, it's the same sound. It all flows together for me. There's nothing I could really say is erroneous unless it's something that feels too produced or too developed or too specific. Where all this is very, it's like simple's not bad. Simple's not bad here, but it's very simple. It's very much
It's
get in there and record.
You do get it with a lot of DIY albums, that kind of whole minimalistic sound. And I get some of the most classic albums of all time are quite minimalistic. I mean, have you ever heard Vampire Weekend's debut? There's not that much that goes into each one of those songs, but they're all so crafted in such a perfect way, and makes that whole it's minimalistic. It's simple, but sometimes you see people overblow productions and stuff like that. And I know this will get me some hatred, but if you ever actually listen to my beautiful dark twisted fantasy, there are some great songs and everything on there, but there are some moments where the production gets so overblown that there's just way too much happening.
I'm gonna say that that's even the case with stuff like podcast stuff. Like, there are some podcasts that are so overly produced, they're hard to.
We're just ripping on every other podcast now until we're the last one remaining.
No, I'm just talking about like overproduced ones, kind of like like Reply All.
Oh, name drop some, yeah.
Oh yeah, let's get some controversy going, boys.
Got some rivalry. Get some more views for us.
And sort of for me to be talking about minimalistic stuff like that, and like the next album that we're going to be talking about is probably anything but.
Oh yeah, it's the next album is not minimalistic at all, but oh my god, is it a good album?
If we're going to talk about next week a little bit, I mean, the album
that's not next week.
I chose is very known for having their own minimalistic stuff happening, and it's very weird.
On that note, is there anything else big enough to talk about? Because again, it's a short album. A lot of the concepts get thrown pretty early on, and you do get it for the whole of the album. I wouldn't consider there to really be a low point on this. I guess there's probably parts that aren't as great as the others, though. But is there anything else really to talk about on this, though?
I appreciate Stephanie being out there doing their thing,
Yeah,
the way they want to do it.
Her Twitter is fun to follow too. I recommend.
I think highlights for me: Laying on My Floor, Meg Ryan, Survival. I didn't really have any low points because
I reckon.
Close.
I reckon there's probably going to be up there with my highlights as well. Survival and Told You So, probably the two best on there. And again, when I go least favorite off here, it is just least favorite off the in the context of the album, and that's why I had to give it to Be Your Own 3 a.m.
I can respect that. It is kind of a weak opener in retrospect, and I definitely feel like it would fit more at the end of the album because it has kind of like a triumphant sort of to it, like seize the day, be around 3 a.m.
Think you would move
since
to the front, or would Survival be the opener?
Survival would be the open.
yeah, survival or opener, be your own 3 a.m. Probably it cut down. I think Trix's solution is probably the best. You cut that down to like a 30-second intro and stuff like that. Even if you just like re-record a really much softer kind of like demo, 30-second demo of it as an intro, and then have be your own 3 a.m. as the actual end closer, I think would probably be the better way to do this album. Either that or just don't have be your own 3 a.m. It's either or.
Oh, are we done adulting, Mom?
Yeah.
Yeah, what were your favorites and least favorites, Tricks?
Favorites for me gotta be "Told You So" and "Lose Recover." It's a really good just like ending track. Like it kind of just floats off into nothingness, but like it doesn't like it leaves the ending as a question mark, which is kind of good sometimes.
The last line, I think, is the title of the album, which is cool.
And credits. And your least favorite?
Sorry I Was Sorry. It's kind of like a low point in the album. And some of it cuts a little too deep.
And just before we go to the next album, because I know I accidentally skipped over Dominic. Dominic, what was your least favorite?
I don't have any. I think it's all fine. It all flows.
Wuss.
I don't know. If I had to pick one, I'm gonna say Sun Theory. I don't know why, but Sun Theory, sure. Short one, so I can just say that and hopefully not offend many people.
And with that note, let's get to look. I know throughout the week we were saying that, or you two were saying, and I was saying anything, but that the ranking this week was going to be hard. But if you have anything else but this album is number one, I'm really just going to have to ask you to just really, really make sure you've got that considered. We are doing Gotye, however you want to fucking pronounce it. It's like drawing blood. 10 out of 10. That's all it needs to be said.
It's a good album.
Especially the
And with that
version.
ends the Dissonant Waves podcast. Thank you.
I will say, listening to this version, I was actually a little bit disappointed. I feel like I've never heard the whole like Drawing Blood album, but having heard Making Mirrors the whole way through several times, I was really excited to finally hear the rest of it, because there are certain songs that are not known in America for various reasons, because mostly from sampling.
A distinctive sound. Again, I had to give. We've done some music piracy here, boys. I've had to actually give them the files
the album,
to the
don't worry.
Yeah,
I
had to actually get
so
the Australian version on there, because if you try to listen to like Drawing Blood on Spotify outside of Australia and New Zealand, I think Belgium might be the same as Fine with Us as well. Some music's from there, but I could be fucking wrong. I don't know the laws. There are a lot of differences in the songs. Songs like Coming Back, I think there's a couple others. So I'm gonna have to actually get the Wikipedia after this. The big one, and is especially why I gave them the files to this, is a song called A Distinctive Sound, which does not exist on the international release. Because a distinctive sound, if you haven't heard the band The Avalanches, I don't know why you're even listening to a music podcast, because you're just fucking way off. Distinctive Sound reminds me of that, because Avalanches are a band that, Since I Left You, was this whole 1 hour album that was made nothing but samples, and that's pretty much what a distinctive sound is. It is a song completely of samples. And it is
Can you say that again?
It is a song completely of samples. Sorry, I think I'm lagging a little bit on this fucking Telstra. That's my internet provider here. It is this 6-minute journey of music. That is pretty much all you can describe it as.
What's surprising
Yeah.
is that Making Mirrors is actually very similar. He does a lot of the same stuff.
Well, you listen to, because the most successful track of this album was Heart's a Mess. And you compare that to somebody that I used to know. Heart's a Mess is a better song, but you compare it to to the album, and they are both much slower, much more radio friendly style sounds compared to the rest of the album.
So I don't know. This album struck me in a weird way. I don't know if it's just what's going on in the world right now or just how I was feeling this week. But I noticed a lot of it seemed to be very obsessive, very into relationships, very, I don't know. He comes off sometimes as really creepy, I feel like, in some of these songs. Just the way he talks about, I'm going to wait for you, you're going to be mine, like in a way that, and a lot of songs are about that. But just like the way he likes to.
Actually, I'll get the lyrics up to Heart's a Mess.
Heart's a Mess is one of them. And I love that
Yeah.
song. But like the way, I don't know, it hit me really weird.
That is definitely intentional, knowing Gotye. This, if you haven't listened to the full sounds of this album, and a lot of people wouldn't have even listened to a single song of this album. This is a very haunting sound. Nothing on here seems out bright and bubbly and everything is fucking great. You might say Learner giving a little lovin', might do that. But that's a whole song about how just someone can't fucking be capable of love. It is obsessive. That is the whole point of this. It is, Gotye does make a lot of music based around the ideas of broken relationships. And that is what this album primarily is. I don't think there's a single song on here that is not actually about that, besides the instrumentals. But even Thanks for Your Time, which is this kind of whole, like, this has joke about this, this whole, like, they're stuck in the queue rating on the fucking phone call and stuff like that. And it's just a customer support and everything like that. That whole Thanks for Your Time to me is always struck me to be about, and I could be wrong about this. This is just what I believe it's about. It's that whole moving on and going to the next partner. And it compares it to pretty much the torture of being in the line of a phone line for customer support.
Yeah, I think that's an apt metaphor, perhaps. I think it shows really well there. I think what really digs down for me is that I felt, I don't know, like it didn't always feel like, how do I say this? Sometimes the song, I mean, this might be all intentional. This might be his intention to do it like this, but the frustrations and just the way some of the lyrics hit, it seemed very, I don't know, incelish. Very.
So no, I get what you mean. So we'll go to the first verse of Heart's a Mess. The lyrics are: pick apart the pieces of your heart, let me peer inside, let me in, where only your thoughts have been, let me occupy your mind. Which is this kind of whole, like, it might seem as this whole, like, yeah, you got that, he's being a real creep, and then the next line is, as you do mine. And it is, yeah, to me that means not only is he like, obviously that's all like, let me occupy your mind as you do mine. It's the only thing on, she's the only thing on his head and everything like that. But it's this whole kind of just like one-sidedness of the whole thing. And I know some of this might strike as incelish, but that's only when you take it one way, and there are many ways to take this.
Sure.
I could be wrong. He could just be a fucking incel. I don't know the guy.
Like I said, it could be just the way things have been going lately, and in the world and stuff, and that's just.
I mean, this is an album from 2006.
Right. And I think, coming back is also a lot of that because it's a tango, and I think intentionally meant to be kind of that. And like it's about he's saying you're coming back, you are coming back.
But this is a whole album about being fucking broken. Nothing about this was supposed to ever be happy or anything. It's like when you go back to Weezer's Pinkerton. A lot of people look at that as this whole like, it's really haunting, and these aren't the things you're supposed to say. That is the fucking point. You're not supposed to always say this stuff. You're supposed to be haunting. You're supposed to be brutally honest. And that's what it goes back with Pinkerton. A lot of people think, a lot of people look at that and think, oh, that's just an incel back in the day. And that's the whole point. There's no praise of this behavior. I never once did I go, this is the behavior that you're supposed to have.
It's fair.
This is supposed to be that dark, brutal shit.
Kind of reminded me of this whole song. A song this whole album kind of reminded me.
I can't hear you.
What song?
Every Breath You Take by the Police.
Yes. And that is a song about stalking.
Yes.
It is. I guess if the Police had released a whole album of that, I'd feel similar, perhaps. I mean, like, I like Gotye, I like their sound, but this is just like, oh wow, this is really about relationships in a way that I've never really paid attention to before.
Again, if I can't be the one to make you stop the way that you think it is. So when we're going to the whole like, just back before, I'm just gonna change the subject for a bit of a rant. We're talking about how Troye Sivan started writing, blah blah blah. Gotye does like most of the shit on this album. It's just one guy. For the majority of it, he does an incredible fucking job. And I personally, when I take a lot of these lyrics and everything like that, there never seems to be this whole praise for how he's feeling. He never goes like, I'm stalking you, but that's a good thing because I'm in love. It is haunting. There's no pop happy sounds when he's talking about how he wants him to be the only thing she thinks about or anything like that. There's quite a haunting sound to that, and that's what backs me up, in which I say he understands. He's self-aware in all this, but it doesn't matter. Because this is what he is feeling. And sometimes what you're feeling is kind of bad to feel.
What about Learn a Little Giving and Loving? Because that also seems to be...
Learn a Little Giving and Loving. That's just... So, that one, to me, that's always just been about, like, someone who's just been incapable of love. And it has that big contrast of that whole... So that one is not really a haunting sound. But there's no... Maybe I'm wrong with the lyrics, so I haven't actually fully studied into them. But there's never been any more like, you're on my mind, you're always in my kind of happy praising of it. It is just a whole kind of fuck you.
The one song I will say off the album vibe was Night Drive.
Night Drive is... So Night Drive is probably like the perfect ending to this whole thing. It is probably the least haunting besides Learn to Give a Little Love. I fucking hate saying that now. Yeah. Learn a little giving and loving. Yeah, that's how it is.
I thought it was fucking Welsh. I'm not gonna... I thought it was like that one town in Wales. Oh yeah, I tried
Except
to teach myself.
none of it's Irish or Welsh, so.
Yeah, but like I tried to teach myself Welsh using Duolingo, and that's why it threw me off.
Hmm.
Like I'm dropping the name of the town in the Discord.
On February, going to go get some of the Chernobyl.
God damn,
Got it.
you pretty much fucking nailed that.
Yeah, so that's another point I can put on. So, like Drawing Blood, the title track is this 22-second intro, which literally just drops into The Only Way, which is kind of this real banger, haunting thing, which I think actually has a lovely contrast in between loud and soft sounds in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the closing track, the final one on it, I think the closing track is Night Drive, but the outro, Worn Out Blues, to me, I like that because it's like this just 38-second kind of. It's not really a song or anything like that. It's just a final thought on the album. And yeah, because when Gotye makes his albums, he makes an album. He doesn't make a couple songs and then put them onto an album. He makes an album. And that's what this is. Like Drawing Blood, from start to finish, is an album. You can hear the flow the whole way through. It does. From the second the beat drops into into The Only Way, it does not stop until Night Drive ends. And that's why the Australian version was the way to go with this one. And I don't know what you two's thoughts are on the song A Distinctive Sound, but that is definitely one of my favorites of this album.
I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah, and you have, again, for an album that is mostly about broken up and everything, like breakups and everything like that, you have this real just fun odyssey of music. It's this whole it's like 6 minutes of just trying to find sounds, and all these things are just thrown into there, but they're not thrown in at once. It takes its time to explore everything, and I think it is a perfect instrumental track.
Yeah, it is. It's a good instrument. I have only listened to the Australian.
So with the international version, there was a bit of a changing in the track list. I think it's coming back, and 7 hours, a puzzle with one of them, ends up getting a couple of sounds and samples are replaced, and A Distinctive Sound is removed and actually replaced with a new version of a song from his debut Board Face called The Only Thing I Know, which is longer than that song is longer than anything off Like Drawing Blood. So the international version would actually be longer.
Gotcha.
So a lot of this could just be come up because this album was huge in Australia when it came out. This ended up for the Hottest 100 that year, topping the albums poll, #1, and Learner Little Giving a Lovin', I think, came in at like 95 or something, and Heart's a Mess ended up coming #6 that year. So it was well loved by everyone, because this is a voted poll by like pretty much all of Australia, plus internationally as well. Obviously, Making Mirrors, that ended up in 2011. Not only did that end up winning the albums poll, somebody that I used to know ended up winning the whole fucking thing as well. So obviously that one got a lot more attention. But Like Drawing Blood has always been a well-loved album in the just Australian music scene. And I don't think my opinions are ever going to change to this album of being anything other than a 10 out of 10. To me, but that was Great Gatsby came out after the movie came out after Somebody That I Used to Know, I believe. Yeah. So again, I think this is the definition of a perfect album. I don't think it's the only, like, I wouldn't put this as my favorite of all time, but it's fucking up there.
It's a good album.
So there are a lot of times where I will give a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. This is one of those few albums where I will never give it anything other than a 10 out of 10. And I know you probably might not agree with that, Dominic. I know you aren't too much of a fan of the lyrics, even despite my defense of them.
I would put it up there too. I don't really assign numbers because my mood changes on like a given day.
Yeah.
But it's a good album.
I'll get into all of your favorites and least favorites.
Track.
Dom, you can go first. Don't worry, that's everyone's. And then literally that like 30-second part where there's just literally on the phone call. Least favorite. Tricks, your favorites and least favorites?
I don't really have a least favorite. The whole album is pretty consistent, but my favorite has to be Drive. I love just the bass harmonics on that track.
And you refuse to choose a least favorite?
Well, I can't really think of one because they're all pretty good highlights.
Weak. Yeah,
I
but
didn't
even
like Worn Out
Worn Out
Blues because
Blue.
the album was ending.
Yeah. So favorites of this. So look, I'm an absolute fan of songs like The Only Way. I love that kind of the way that everything just crashes and then hits and then just goes into the straight kind of haunting funk. Coming back, thanks for your time. Thanks for your time is obviously this really fun ass track because it seemed like, again, the kind of whole meaning that I get out of it as well for something that is so like kind of weirdly put together. Distinctive sound. You've heard my praise of that. Night Drive as well is really like it's really just fucking nice. Night Drive. Learn a Little, Given 11 was definitely one of the first big ones that I got into this and stuff like that. But I think undoubtedly it could just be, again, because being Australian, being raised up in this, Heart's a Mess is just the fucking best. The amount of times that me and my friends, like, we've just been in a car driving, we've played this, and you can just hear 3 fucking 21-year-olds just screaming out every word to the top of their lungs for 6 minutes. Heart's a Mess, best of the album. But yet the album flows so well. And I'd say the least favorite is probably 7 Hours with a Backseat Driver. As much I love it, it's one of those ones where every other song I just love more. And that's it. We got to do the rankings of the albums here, babies. Because I think it's already obvious what I picked number one. I'm just going to go first and then cry when you two don't pick it. Technically, you can go from 4, but I'm going to take the Aiden Alexander singles out of here because they were mostly just for comparison to Troye Sivan, which is the main one. Number 3 is Troye Sivan. Adult Mom, again, I knew quite a bit of it going into before, but having actually probably listened to the album for the first time, I might actually myself go and find it because it is a really nice 30 minutes. But it's number 2 because number 1 is fucking Gotye any day of the week. Because it's not really the problem is it's not really an album or anything. It's just a bunch of singles. If it was an EP put on and the exact order of I Don't Love You, Yours, Melancholia, and Guts, probably is number 3. Yeah. But I don't like considering it because it's just a bunch of singles and we're ranking more EPs and albums here, and you got a bunch of singles that haven't actually been properly given an order yet. And if an album or EP comes out of it, they might be re-recorded and stuff like that. And it also then feels like I may as well just be ranking 4 different songs, which I don't really want to do. So that's why I feel like it can't really have a rank. Hold on, I'm just gonna say this: if number 1 and number 2, doesn't matter which order they are in, is Troye Sivan and Gotye, you're potentially pissing off the entire Australian music scene if you make the wrong choice. So no pressure. Listen to your heart, and then throw that fucking thing away, and then truly think about the albums that you have listened to. Your number 1 is Troye Sivan. Number 3 is Troye Sivan. Oof. It's just too brilliant of an album. I think this is the first time ever that we've all had the same number one, and it has been an album that I have picked. Therefore, I am the supreme leader. Thank you, everybody. So I think it's pretty obvious from this situation that Troye Sivan probably goes into a bottom rank of the week, although, yeah, because we all put Aiden Alexander above Troye Sivan. And you got to take that, Dominic. One thing I didn't actually say about Troye Sivan though, which like put aside for all the albums and everything, didn't say in the podcast. I really appreciate that he does regularly go and grab some underground Australian acts, or even sometimes New Zealand, because Broods is New Zealand, and has them as guest features on his albums. I think that is, as much as I might not be a fan of his EPs or anything, so much mad respect for doing it. Doesn't even matter if it's his fucking label or something making him doing that, just for having these, mad respect. But Gotye number one. Well, I reckon we're probably going to be, if I remember the albums that we're doing next week, I think we're probably going to be agreeing on number one next week. I'm just going to go first with what I'm choosing next week, because even though I love it, and it is actually not just my favorite Australian EP of all time, it is my favorite EP of all time. I don't know if it's going to be the win next week, if I can remember correctly. But I'm choosing pretty much the re-release of an EP, because the LP of this is way too hard to find, of the Middle East's recordings of the Middle East. I should just get the picture out while I describe this. If you haven't heard who the Middle East are, they are Townsville, North Queensland, indie folk band who originally broke out as a Triple J on Earth act, and only had popularity in Australia during their whole around 3-year span. I think they broke up more times than they actually put out a record. And it's this 26-minute just folk EP. There is so much instrumentation that happens so calmly and everything like that. There were some build-ups to some just great outros on this. You probably heard the track Blood if you've seen a lot of TV shows or anything like that. They started a lot up, big time after their breakup. They started to play this album quite a lot, like that song quite a lot more. I think Crazy Stupid Love had it in there. And that is what I have picked for us to look at next week. It's the problem is that I can really only find the YouTube of it. And even that's hard to find, and it's all over the place. So it's just going to be the EP of this. But we can talk about this LP. If you want to listen to those extra free songs, go ahead. The files exist, they're just hard to get. I know Dominic has posted his on the Discord, however, because it's probably going to be the number one, I'm going to put Tricks in to suggest his album. No, of Montreal. Do we want to have a drum roll to what Dominic's reveal is going to be? Keep going, Trix. Keep going. Keep going. Hold on. Nah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And we've gone through a music note, everybody. We're out of here. Yeah, it will be like 50 albums podcast in. Yeah, remember that time we did In the Airplane Over the Sea? And you didn't do On Avery Island first. So I'm going to put this out here before we start having the fight of it in our next podcast. In the Airplane Over the Sea is the better album. If you told me to choose their best song, it's fucking Naomi from on Avery Island. I know it's a big call, but there were some great songs in the Airplane Over the Sea, and sometimes they beat Naomi. Naomi is just the fucking greatest that they've done. No, it's full stop going to be number one for all of us next week. I guarantee it. Hmm. Oh yeah, it's also one of the obviously I stick to the Australian music when I pick my albums because I feel like, hey, there was so much to talk about in our scene, and the only problem I have with covering In the Airplane Over the Sea, and which we'll do next week, and it's not that there's nothing to talk about, it's that this is probably one of the most talked about albums in the industry. I've listened to this album so many fucking times to the point in which I can probably remember it all by heart. I can't play it by heart, but I can remember the album by heart. And that's why I was always scared of kind of covering it this early, because it is going to be a phenomenal. It's probably going to take up a lot of next episode, because there is so much to talk about in it. Nah, there's a shit ton to talk about in this one. Just even with Neutral Milk Hotel's history, the album cover, it could probably go on for 5 minutes. How much I want to fuck Jeff Magnum. Yes. Yeah, I've done that way more times than I'd like to admit. It's gonna be an interesting one, but had to be covered, I guess. Anyway, thanks for listening to the Dissonant Waves podcast. My name is Riddle, and I have a YouTube channel. If you actually have bothered to listen, to watch any of that YouTube channel, I believe you have wasted approximately around 5 seconds of your time before realizing that I do nothing on there. I also have a website, Riddle for Kids, at github.io. I sometimes put my projects on there. Not much other than that. I work full time. Don't expect much from me. Just Yeah, that's what I do. Yes, I do believe this was an hour and 30 minutes of talking about albums that nobody is actually going to listen to. And that's going to piss me off because Gotye 10 out of 10. Thanks, Craig. Bye, Craig.